Hello children, hope so you have gone through the previous videos of this chapter to get the content, and in this video we will discuss about the question answers and the few important facts which are given in boxes in the chapter. And the first one was about the achievements of Nagabhat. Many rulers describe their achievements in Prasasti. Children, are you remember the term Prasasti? Yes, the Prasasti which was written, the Prasastis were actually the Sanskrit poems which were written by learned Brahmins in praise of the kings, in which they described the achievement of the kings. And one such example already you have read in class 6th, that was about the Prasasti of Samudragupta. This Prasasti of Samudragupta, and his Prasasti was composed by Hari Shena, and this Prasasti was also in praise of him. And another example of Prasasti was of Nagabhat, who was a Pratihar king. And in the following lines, he described as a brave soldier and all the victories of the Nagabhat that he got in his time period, like the kings of Andhra, Sendava, Vidarbha, and Kalinga, part of Orissa, fell before him even as he was a prince. Means all the rulers of these areas were accepted the dominance of Nagabhat. It was described in Prasasti. Then he won a victory over Chakrayuth, the ruler of Kanuj, defeated the king of Wang, part of Bengal, Anartha, part of Gujarat, Malwa, part of Madhya Pradesh, Krita, forest people, Turaksha, Turk, Vatsa, Matsya, both kingdom in North India. Means when he became a king, he won a victory over these areas. So overall, Nagabhat was described as a very powerful king in the Prasasti. The next is about the taxes. Now the inscriptions were the written material and generally engraved on the hard, like the rock surfaces or the metal plates. The inscriptions of the Cholas who ruled in Tamil Nadu refer to more than 400 terms for different kinds of taxes. Means more than 400 kinds of taxes were collected by the Cholas, and the most frequently mentioned tax is Vetti. This Vetti term taken not in cash but in the form of forced labor. Mean this Vetti tax was not in the form of cash, means not in the form of money, or even not in the form of a produce, but in the form of a forced labor. Here people had to give the labor, the forced labor, to the king. Then Kadambi means land revenue. It's simple that the land revenue means the tax on the agricultural land. Beside these two important, there were also taxes on thatching the house, the use of ladder to climb palm trees, a cess होता है additional kind of tax to provide some special service. So this cess on succession to family property, etc. Now the question arises that are any such taxes collected today? Taxes are collected today also, but not in the form of forced labor. If we talk about this Kadambi, yes, land revenue is collected by the government. Cess is also collected by the revenue. But if we talk about the Vetti, Veti is not collected. Why Veti is not collected? Because it is in the form of a forced labor, and this forced labor is banned by the Indian Constitution because it harms the dignity of an individual, and moreover it doesn't provide the equality to the citizens. So forced labor kind of tax is not collected today. Then there are various terms which the Chola rulers used to describe the land, which they used to give as endowments. The first one is Velenvegai. This term was used to that land which was given to the non-Brahman peasants. Then Brahmadya, it was clear that land gifted to the Brahmans. Then Shala Bhog, this term was used for that land which was used for the maintenance of a school. Then Devdana and Tiruna Matukani. This was land gifted to temples, and Pali Chandanam, land donated to Jain institution. Because in 6th you have read that the Jainism and Buddhism, these two religions were also flourished side by side the Hindu religion. So to the Jain institutions also the land was given by the Cholas ruler, and this was the term which was used for that. Now, coming to the NCRT question answers, and the first question is of the match the following. On the left side, the name of the kingdoms are there, and on the right side, the areas over which they ruled. Like Gurjar Pratiharas ruled over Gujarat and Rajasthan, Rashtrakutas over Western Deccan, Palas over Bengal, Cholas over Tamil Nadu. The second one question is, who were the parties that involved in tripartite struggle? Now tripartite struggle means the in which the three parties were involved. So this tripartite struggle was the war, actually the battle that fought between the Gurjar Pratiharas, Rashtrakutas and Pala dynasties for the control over the city of Kanuj, because Kanuj was strategically important and even it was important for the trade purpose. So they fought over the Kanuj. Then what were the qualifications necessary to become a member of a committee of the Sabha in the Chola Empire? These were the qualifications, and the first one is that the members of the Sabha should be the owners of the land from which land revenue was collected. Means they must have their own land and they must pay the land revenue also. Then they should have their own homes, means they should not live on the rented houses, they should have their own homes. Then they should be between 35 to 70 years. However, in some special cases the age relaxation can be given up to 75 years also. Then they should have knowledge of the Vedas. They should be honest to the king and experienced in the administrative matters. It means they should be well versed in the policies which were laid by the kings. Then what were the two major cities under the control of the Chahmans? Delhi and Ajmer. These were the two areas which were under the control of the Chahmans, and Chahmans were also known as Chauhans. Then how did Rashtrakutas become powerful? Now Rashtrakutas, I told you that Rashtrakutas were initially Samantas or the subordinates to the Chalukyas of Karnataka. They were not the kings initially, they were Samantas. So the powerful chief of this Rashtrakuta defeated, the name was Dantidurg. He defeated his Chalukya overlord and performed the Hiranyagarbha, a sacrifice, a ritual sacrifice, a kind of havan, to establish his right to rule, because only Kshatriyas people could rule over the people, and he was not Kshatriya by birth, so he performed this ritual to become Kshatriya. So this ritual was performed with the help of the Brahmins, and it was thought that the sacrifice could be reborn as a Kshatriya even if he was non Kshatriya by birth. So slowly and gradually his military powers increased, his wealth increased, and he performed Hiranyagarbha also, and finally he defeated his overlord and became powerful in India. Then the next question is, what did the new dynasties do to gain acceptance? Here, new dynasties means this word is used for those Samantas who became king by defeating their overlord. And this I explained in the first part of the video with the help of the flowchart also. So the first point is that the new dynasties in the specific regions were acknowledged by the existing kings as their samantas or subordinates. Like Vijayalaya, if you remember, in the second part of the video I told you that Vijayalaya ruled over the Uriyar, but he defeated the Mutrayar also, and established their control over the Kaveri Delta areas also, and side by side he defeated their overlord also and established a new town Tanjavur. So from a very limited, from a very specific area, the new dynasty of Chola Empire was laid down by Vijayalaya. Then this we know that Samantas were given land by the kings, and on that land they collected the land revenue, and with that money they were expected to bring gifts for their kings, and they had to maintain the military also, which they used to provide to the king in the times of war. So they were collecting the land revenue. It means they were increasing their wealth, and they were also maintaining the army also. It means that the military powers were also increased. So when the power and the wealth they were increased, they declared themselves and they gave high sounding titles to themselves like Mahasamantas and Mahamandaleshwar. The fourth one is that they performed rituals to be reborn themselves as Kshatriyas with the help of the Brahmins, means the sacrifice, that ritual, Hiranyagarbha. Then they fought war with neighboring regions to gain power and also built temples to acknowledge it. Like Vijayalaya fought a battle with the Mutrayar and established his control over the Kaveri Delta areas, and also he built Nishumbadini temple. Then, what kind of irrigation works were developed in the Tamil region? Now, this Tamil region. Now, on over this Tamil region, the Chola empire was there, and the Chola empire took various steps to increase the agriculture land as well as to increase the irrigational facilities. So overall the production could be increased and the money could also be increased. So the first step which they took, that the wells were dug in several areas and tanks were built in order to collect rain water. Then forests were cleared on a large scale so that the land could be increased for the agriculture purpose, and the land was also leveled to make, it means to make the that land fertile or to make the land suitable for the agriculture. Then embankments were built, means the vertical walls were built around the river areas, especially in the delta region, in order to prevent flooding. Means whenever the level of the water increased, with the help of that vertical walls, the flooding water could be prevented to be entered in the neighboring areas. Then canals were built so that water could be transported to the fields. Means these canals were the artificial small kind of rivers that were also built, and they used for the irrigation purpose. Then what were the activities associated with the Chola temples? Now these were the activities. The first one is the Chola temples emerged as a center around which human settlements would grow. Means around the temples the people started living there, and when they started living there the industries would prosper. craft industries, means the industries were also developed there. Then the priest, garland makers, sweepers, magician, cooks, dancers, etc. lived near the temples and provided many types of services. When human settlements would grow around the temples, the industries also developed, and that industries needed the services of various people. So these people were also started living there and provided services to the industries. Then they were also associated with the making of Chola bronze images, and this craft was considered, and even it's considered as the finest craft work in the world. It was worldwide famous. Then temples were not only places of worship but also hub of social, cultural, and economic activities. Uh, Generally, we take temple as a place for the worship, but the Chola temples were not meant for the worship only. It was a center of social, cultural, and economic activities. Economic activities like industries would develop there. Social and cultural means on the land which was given to the Chola temples. On such land, even the schools could also be maintained and other activities could also be done there. So it was a hub, it was a center of so many activities. It's just not a place of worship. So, students, this is all about the NCRT question answers. So, that's all for the day. Thank you and have a nice day.